Hey, what's up guys, Mashiny here, come back with a brand new video for you guys. Today we're going to be talking about some things case related, and we got some pretty good news. We're going to be talking about some of these cases that are starting to look a lot better now than they were a month ago. We're going to be talking about the past month, summing it up, and where we see the future going as we move into that pretty much Q4 of the year. The big time. We're pretty close to it. We're not too far away. We got a lot of big things going on there. And speaking of buying up some things, I've got a couple links in the description if you're looking to help out the channel, but otherwise let's hop on into it. So the main portion of this video is going to be talking about cases here. So on the screen right now, you're going to be seeing an image of all the cases unboxed in August of 2021. Now, in June of 2021, we saw about 23 million unboxed. Last month in July, we saw 21 million, and here in August, we saw 18.5 million. So there's obviously a decreasing trend, but that's not too worrying. We know the player base is down significantly from where we were in June. A decrease of 20% is pretty understandable when you lose over 20% of your player base. So I think we're still in a really good position here. The biggest ones I want to hit on, first we got the clutch case. Now we're going to get into the clutch case a little bit later in this episode and how it's starting to look a little bit more promising here. But in July we saw over 3 million. Here we're seeing 2.5 million. Still not terrible, still obviously the biggest and most opened case on the list. But I would like to see it around that 2.8 million at least. So I think it's slightly lacking, but honestly, I'm not too worried about this one moving forward. Otherwise though, we haven't had too much for the cases sustaining. We had the danger zone sustain, which is pretty interesting, only really going down about 30,000, which is on a large scale like this, 1.4 million to 1.375 million is pretty much the same. I mean, honestly, that's not too much of a difference there. And we can't be too particular about these numbers because they are pretty much rough estimates. So when you look at some of the smaller numbers like the Bravo case and the Weapon 2 case and the Hydra case and stuff like that, it's not going to be exact, but it can give us a really good estimate on how many of these cases were opened and where particular these cases are at compared to last month. Another case I'm looking to make a big run soon is that Spectrum 2 case. I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a drop off here, but it only went down about 100,000. It's still sitting at 1.4 million opened in August, which is absolutely crazy. And honestly, a 35-cent price point right now might be too cheap compared to the market. We still had 1 million Spectrum cases opened at 70 cents on average. So we're sitting in a really good spot for those Spectrum and Spectrum 2 investors. I think this case definitely has a really good future ahead of it. Another case that's done decent once again is the Gamma 2 case. Cracking over that million mark is all you want to see for these older cases. It's a pretty decently old case at this point, and the only other two cases to do that I consider old are the Spectrum 2, and next after that's the clutch case. So I mean, there's a lot of these Gamma 2s being opened. And one that's really surprising to me is the glove case actually went up in the amount of people opening it. So it does seem like the glove case does have a pretty decent amount of demand there. I wouldn't expect that one to go up, but it did, which is pretty surprising. Only about 50,000 there, but that's still about a 10% increase. Next up here, then we got the CS20 case, and it looks a bit rough for CS20 investors, I will tell you that. We went from 300,000 in July, which is still not a high number, to 150,000-ish for August. Absolutely terrible numbers. An Operation Broken Fang case, not very good either. Went from about 1.5 million to 1.2 million, a 300,000 case drop off. Broken Fang's at least looking a little bit better, just because it does have that capped supply, but neither of these are looking too great at this point. Moving on into our current market graphs though. First up here we got the clutch case, and it seems like the market has determined that 20 cents and below is way too cheap for a clutch case at this point. We're back up to that 21-cent mark, 23-cent mark even. So there's a lot of potential here. It's really good to see that the market determined that that was way too cheap. We had about a week stretch there where I was a little bit nervous because there was just way too many of these beasts being sold for so cheap. But I'm glad to see that we are starting to push a decently higher price point now, about where we were at, so around that quarter mark per case. Another thing that was pretty surprising to me, but fits with our statistics we saw on the graph, is the glove case has recently seen a pretty big shoot up in price. We saw it go from about $1.72 to about $1.85, 86-ish. but it looks like this is where it's going to stay at. The crazy part is this happened in just about the span of a day. September 1st to September 2nd, we saw about a 10 to 15-cent increase, which is pretty crazy in that short of a time period. That's really similar to what we saw when we saw that crazy case investing hype earlier. So this is really good news for potential investors and people who are invested into the glove case here. Overall, for the glove case, it's got a really promising future here as we're starting to see those buy orders stack up once again. We've seen about 4,000 of these just gone in the past 24 hours compared to where we were before. Obviously, there's still some being listed, but we were sitting about 75,000. Now we're at 71,000. So these are starting to disappear off the market like we saw previously, which is really good. And then to finish it up here, I want to talk a little bit about the future. We're not going to get into anything specific really, but you kind of see a rough timeline on the screen. I know it's not great quality. It's just kind of to show what I'm going to be talking about here. So we're obviously at the far left where it says now. This is pretty much the beginning of September. Now, between, in my eyes, about the middle of September to the middle of October, we're going to see what I call the return, where we're going to see a lot of people coming back to the game as temperatures start to decrease a little bit. People start to spend a little bit more time indoors. Usually during this time between September and October, we see a lot of the player base coming back, reeling back in, as they probably have a feeling that another event or pretty much a big update is going to be coming soon. Then obviously at the end of October, we've got the PGL Major. This is something absolutely crazy. It's something I'd love to attend and might be attending, but we don't know at this point if it's going to be in Stockholm. That's not too important to this fact, but we're going to be seeing in about 2 weeks, and I think that's when the return is going to start. When that date is finalized, that date becomes public and public knowledge, we're going to start to see a lot of people interested in coming back to the game. And then finally, at the end of November, we've got the End of the Dreams and Nightmares competition where the winners will be revealed. Obviously, the end is at the end of October, right around when the major is going to be starting. But that's really not too important. We care about the month later date where we're going to be seeing our winners. Now at this point, it's pretty much out there that it's probably going to be an operation. It doesn't make much sense for Valve to put this much publicity into just a brand new case. I mean, obviously $1 million prize pool, it's something that gets a lot of interest. $1 million on one case obviously shows that Valve is still trying to attract attention to what they're doing, and I think it's just way too big of a prize pool for them to be advertising for just a normal case. I think it's probably going to be a major, and I feel like that's the overall consensus at this point. Overall, guys, that's really all I have for today, though. It's definitely really interesting to see kind of that case craze returning. I mean, we saw it a little bit with that glove case where we saw that 15 cents in 24 hours. That's something crazy, and that's something we've really only ever seen when that huge investing hype was going on. It was super fun, and there was a lot of profit to be made if you went in at the right time. But that's really all I have for today, guys. I just want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.